Right, so our next speaker today is Teresa Gilmore, Teresa Gilmore, and she's going to talk to us about the Polden Hill Brooches and more Roman finds recorded in the West Midlands. I'll just give you a little bit of a biography for her. So she started her working career at Cotswold Archaeology and was there for about 7 years, and then moved to the Portable Antiquities scheme in Ludlow in Liverpool, and then settling as the FLO in Staffordshire and the West Midlands in 2012. She's been fortunate enough to deal with wonderful cases like the Leekfirth Torques and the Tudor Heart Locket, now acquired by the British Museum. She's published 2 books, 50 Finds from Staffordshire and Lichfield, A Potted History. And so I will hand over to you. Enjoy.
Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So, thanks for inviting me to come and tell you all about some of the exciting Roman finds we've got from the West Midlands. Could have just talked about Staffordshire, but on one hand, Staffordshire is a very modern concept, especially when you're talking about Roman finds, so I kind of went more provincial and kind of the whole West Midlands as a whole. And I also felt it was an opportunity to give me a chance to go through the data and see what we've actually got. So I ended up in a little bit of a rabbit hole, slightly, and having a look at what we've got. So since the Portable Antiquities scheme started back in '97, we've actually got nearly 60,000 finds from the various West Midlands counties. So I've been dealing more with the historical counties. Our database, though, it works in more modern counties and unitary authorities, so I've had to combine a few extras in there. So things like Warwickshire, I've had to include Birmingham and the Black Country, and Staffordshire, Stoke, Walsall, Wolverhampton, Dudley and Sandwell. The map I've got up, you can see this nice gap here. That's Birmingham. No one goes detecting in Birmingham, so we always have a nice big gap, the little sticky up bit, where's my mouse? Just here, that's Sutton Coldfield. This gap here is the Staffordshire Moorlands, and we've got the Shropshire Hills and Malverns along here. There's always gaps in the PS distribution, so this is kind of what we'd expect. But as you can see, we've got quite a good blanket coverage over the 5 West Midlands counties. I've got totals from the different counties. Warwickshire does have an awful lot more, but that's also partially because of legacy, because when the first West Midlands flow started back in '97, they were mostly focusing on Warwickshire with a bit of Staffordshire and Worcestershire in there. And Herefordshire, for some reason, always seems to lag behind. We don't have as many finds recorded from Herefordshire, but it's a case of hopefully over the next couple of years, they'll hopefully improve as we improve coverage in there. So what I decided to try and do was look at those 60,000 finds, and I broke them all down into functional categories. This did take a little bit of time, as you can imagine, and it's also one of the things to be aware. The PAS database is fantastic, but we've had different people recording finds at different points, so be aware that you will need to do a bit of data cleaning with any records that you download. As you can see, 4 main spikes across the West Midlands are things like coins and coin hoards. This big orange spike here can be partially put down to various coin hoards in Shrewsbury, especially the 2009 Shrewsbury hoard, which had 9,217 radiates and nummi in there. So we've got a few different peaks there. This blue peak for Warwickshire on Roman coins is partially down to one particular finder and his permission covering a Roman villa and him spending his life's work going out there. He's got over 1,000 Roman coins there. But also you do get much nicer Roman coins from Warwickshire than you do from Staffordshire. And then we've got a nice big peak in household, but that does include a lot of pottery sherds. Lots of them. It's one of the things we do encourage metal detectorists not just to focus on metal objects, but also use their eyes. If they see pottery, pick it up. We then groan when they turn up with 5 boxes of the stuff. And especially this one, that blue peak from Warwickshire is mostly a little village called Tysoe, and one particular finder who, yes, turned up with several boxes. And I can remember one record I did had 900 odd sherds of greyware. So I'm not knocking it, it's just there are some reasons for some of these peaks. And, of course, we have a large amount of brooches. brooches are after the coins, they're one of the more common ones we tend to get. But the problem is we've got such high peaks, you can't see what all the other functional categories are. So I did take those off, and we've got, again, quite an interesting set of distributions going on. What really struck me, though, was in all of our 5 counties, we don't have much in the way of military or weapons. Considering we're straddling the 2 zones, especially Shropshire and Staffordshire, I'd expect on one hand to have a bit more military. But it's not the kind of finds we tend to see. I think I've had a couple of cheap pieces, but very little military from Staffordshire. We get lots of dress accessories, building material that also goes along with some of the household, and if you're going picking up bits of pottery, you will pick up bits of CBM as well. Herefordshire has also turned up a massive spike for industrial. When I look through some of the data, actually it's because, again, one finder, their site turned up, we got a record for 219 pieces of scrap lead, which could be Roman, but equally there could be later. But in this case, we've got that spike there from that. We've got various bits of horse, and in this case, so we've got textiles, so that's mostly your spindle wools and so on, and a few weights and measures. So I just thought it was quite interesting to see the range of different types of objects and the functional categories I based off Nina Crummey's categories. Because the big graph was a little bit hard to understand, I did separate everything out into basically north and south a little bit. And what really struck me was Shropshire and Staffordshire having a very similar distribution with the different functional types. So with the peaks for both dress accessories and fittings and fastures, along with coming into textiles, these distributions are very much the same, a bit like Worcestershire and Warwickshire. So we're showing up the divide between the 2 provinces quite nicely. I mentioned brooches. I couldn't do a talk about the West Midlands without including Roman brooches, because it does feel like pretty much every other Roman find we get handed in is a brooch. Most of them are Polden Hill. When we recruited our last assistant as part of the interview, we actually gave them an artefact test. One of them was a brooch. She recognised it was a Roman brooch, didn't get the type. That's fine. And we did joke with her that after about 6 months, she'd be recognising a Polden Hill brooch at 10 paces. She thought we were kidding. After 6 months, she agreed she could recognise one at 10 paces. And I'm really pleased to see you've got a few Polden Hill brooches in the galleries here as well. But we are getting a few different types as well. If it's not a Polden Hill, it's a trumpet. And then so you start getting acicas in certain areas, and also bird lips and a few dragoness brooches. And looking at the data, and it did take me quite a while to actually put everything down into subtypes. I have not divided the brooches into Macreth subtypes. I would have been there for days. There's 4,500 brooches. But as we can demonstrate, the Polden Hill brooch is about 50% of all the brooches we get in the West Midlands. And from some of the work Sally Worrell did in the past, we're fairly certain the Polden Hill is being made in the West Midlands. Exactly whereabouts, we're not sure. This is where we need a nice, friendly PhD student to go through all the different Polden Hill brooches, put them into their subtypes and work out distributions. But we've also got our trumpets coming on here, and Colchester derivatives will have some of the Polden Hills in there as well, because sometimes it's what's based off. But things like your dragonesques are turning up more in Warwickshire than some of the others. I do apologise for the slightly messy graphs. It took me a while, but also there's a lot of different brooch types. So that's the Polden Hill brooch. And now we're coming on to coins. We've got, understandably, quite a lot of them. Interestingly, and this was one of the things I found fascinating when I was studying data, Staffordshire seems to have the most Roman coin hoards from out of the West Midlands. They are, I will say, apart from ones like Barlaston, there's a couple from Barlaston, most of our Roman coin hoards are maximum about 10 or 30 coins. They're not massive, whereas Shropshire seems to have a lot larger on that side. And they're turning up a lot more as well. So it's a very similar distribution to before. It's kind of what you'd expect. did put in for the coin specialists, and I know there's at least one in the room, a nice Reese period distribution, and 2 lovely coins that we had, one from Shropshire, a Solidus of Valentinian, and we've got an Aureus of Vitellus from Staffordshire. It's turned up. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of our more recent coin hoards that turned up. So it was a couple of years ago, turned up on a Friday afternoon. Excellent. For once, this was not a metal detecting find. And on one hand, we would hope for great stratigraphy, but unfortunately not, because it was found by a set of builders as they were digging the footing for a conservatory, and basically went straight through the stratigraphy. We did manage to get Worcester Archaeology out on the site relatively quickly. They had a good examine of the site, but couldn't actually work out found a small pit, but nothing significant. So we're still a little bit uncertain about what's actually going on. It's found on the outskirts of Worcester, close to Malvern Hills, and we've got 1,367 denarii and 1 gold stater. The earliest dated coin is stater 157 BC, and the latest is AD 57, so it's being linked to Nero, and probably evidence of the Roman army moving through Worcestershire. We've got part of the pot that it was buried in as part of it, and it is still going through the treasure process. It's currently at the valuation stage, and Worcester museums are hoping to acquire it and go on display. They've recently just put a small display on about it. So, and it was worth mentioning, one of our highlights. And it wouldn't be a PAS talk if I don't show you a few pretty finds. So, I'm going to start with a few different strap fittings. So most of these is a case of, this one's a little bit earlier, so this is kind of 1st to 2nd century. You've got our horse harness with the little circles in the middle, all recorded by the Liverpool office. So, and very similar style of strap fitting just here. The one with head is actually a little bit more interesting. That's actually come from close to Wall, later Seatham, Staffordshire, and it depicts Silenus, who's the companion to Dionysus. So it's linking it to the religion and the cult of Dionysus and Bacchus. Fingerings. Don't get many of those from Staffordshire. Had one recently, and there was very much, this case came from Newcastle under Lyme, and it was a case of turned around to the museum and went, this is the nicest one we've had in decades, you are acquiring this, please. So we've got over here, we've got one, again, another treasure case from Herefordshire, inscribed with Die Victorii on the bezel, linked to 3rd, 4th century AD. So I think all of these are going through the treasure process. Hopefully that one will be acquired by Herefordshire Museum. We've got another little intaglio one, and I can't remember, I think it's a little figure. Had one. This one's a little shrimp, bottom in the intaglio, and we've got an unclear intaglio on these. So we do get the fingerings. Fingerings seem to be one of the more common dress accessories that do turn up, and of course they're also quite pretty. Harness fittings. These are a case of some of the more common evidence of horses, military, and in this case of chariots. And it's quite interesting the range that we've got. So we've got this beautiful skirted turret that's come from Worcestershire, the little bit of decoration on the lobes just here. And we've got this nice knobbed turret from Warwickshire. Staffordshire, however, we seem to don't get anything quite so exciting. We have a little bit more of a plain one turning up. So this one's a lot smaller, so you've got your 3 large ones at the front and the smaller one is at the back. Getting quite a few different knife handles, which is interesting, including a threesome, erotic scene going on here. So a couple of people engaged, which is kind of fairly typical, recorded by the Welsh lot. And this has been actually recorded as a razor handle, and it's meant to be a little, I would say it's a cow of some kind. So you've got the blade which would come underneath, and then we've got a couple more hare and hounds knife handles. Of course, as you would. We're missing the iron blade. Most detectorists are not very good at picking up an iron, but also iron requires a lot more x-rays that we don't have time for. And we've got this kind of fish one just in the middle. Pendants. So it wouldn't be a Roman Finds conference without a phallic good luck symbol. It's part of it. So we've got this lovely one from Shropshire turning up, and we've got a couple of military. These are some of the few bits of military we do actually have. So we've got this harness pendant, these two harness pendants, one from Staffordshire, one from Worcestershire. So I've got the record numbers for anyone who wants a bit more detail. Steelyards. We have had a couple of complete steelyards, but most of the time when we get steelyards in, we normally just get the weights or a biconical weight, and the finders are always going, hey, it's definitely a steelyard. And without actually the steelyard, it can be hard to say it is definitely a steelyard weight. Although the figurative ones, like this one, you've got the head, arms, body coming down, are a lot easier to classify as steelyards. So in this case, weighing and everything. Got a couple of really nice mounts. So we've got bovine, bull's head one, eyes, ears, horns, you've got the little nostrils turning up, and this is from Shropshire. We've had another one come in fairly recently as well, and we've got a little bird-headed mount as well. Evidence for communication and writing with a few different seal boxes. So we've got this nice little rectangular enamelled one from Warwickshire, little circular one from Staffordshire. This one could be part of a plate brooch, but it is missing a couple of the fittings on the back, so it's the reasons it's gone down as a seal box. And we've got this little diamond-shaped one from Warwickshire. We've got a couple of different statues and figurines. This one over here is quite an interesting one. So you've got head is a bound captive. You've got the rope going around his neck that you can just about see. So my colleague over in Wrexham, Susie, recorded that one. We got part of a statue or bust, literally the ear. This one's a 3rd century date because of some of the curls in his hair. That's how we've managed to date that one. We've got another little figurine. When they recorded it, they didn't identify which god it could be, but I've had one similar in the past that Sally Warrels is linked to being Mercury due to the pert buttocks. And this one looks like he's got fairly pert buttocks as well, so I'm going to say this one's possibly Mercury. And then we've also got part of another little statue here with just the head, and because it's got a Pygarian cap, it's been linked to the 3rd and 4th centuries. So that's basically a little bit of an overview of some of the different finds we've been having in the West Midlands. One of the things I just wanted to do was basically raise the awareness of the wealth of information we've got, and do come and talk to the flows. And as I said, we are experts, we see a lot of different things, but we don't know everything. So if there are records that we've done that, a bit like James has said, have been misidentified, please send in our reports. We are more than happy to hear them. We've got lots of different finds. If you do want to know a little bit more about some of the finds from Staffordshire, honestly, might as well do a book plug. 50 Frames from Staffordshire. I have included a case of a summary of various different finds from different periods, including various Roman ones, available from all good and bad booksellers. And just say thank you to all the people I work with. And if you want any contact details, they're just up there. We have issued recently, so it was up until last year, Jaideem over in Herefordshire and Shropshire. They've moved over to Museum of Wales, and we recently recruited, they started at the start of the year, Peter Carey and Sarah Patterson to cover Herefordshire and Shropshire. They job share, they do 2.5 days. So it's a case of they're part of the team now, so we do have cover back in Herefordshire and Shropshire. I job share with Victoria, and we do Staffordshire and the West Midlands together, and we've got our colleague. So yeah, do get in contact, and we're always happy to talk to people about exciting finds. So, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Teresa?
I stunned everyone into silence.
Yes. Yeah. can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Okay, so the question is whether we've got any evidence for manufacture about Polden Hill brooches. Yes, we do, actually. Actually, can you go back? So we do actually we've got about half a dozen models. So there's about 4 Polden Hill, 1 trumpet and 1 Colchester derivative. And I'm not sure if they're actually going to show up on here because there's only a very few. But yes, we do have evidence for manufacture of the Polden Hill brooches. But it's one of the things, because it's a lead object, sometimes it can be very hard to see, and it's also reminding the detectorist to hand something in. Sometimes it's like, oh, it looks like a brooch, but it can't be a brooch because it's lead. And we go, yes, it is. Actually, we do need to record this. This is actually quite an important one. But yes, we do have a few lead models.
Excellent. Any other questions in the room? Nope. It's right. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. That was very interesting.